Well, there are several things that I have learned over the past several weeks. I'll share a couple of them with you. One is rather random, but worth sharing. Even if you're moving from your car to the building or from your car to the house, you still need to wear your hat and coat. Facts. Because it's a short trip. Right, Brother Wendell? You need to wear. The other day I jumped out the car and was coming in the building and I didn't have a coat on. I was just across the parking lot. Where's your coat? That was Brother Wendell. And it's true. It's very true. Second thing I've learned is that the struggle continues. We are not out of the woods as a people. In fact, we have to blow the dust off of some of the songs that we used to sing and bring them back. Like we shall overcome. Trouble don't last always. It was one of the honors of my life to travel to New Jersey and to be invited to be the preacher for their Martin Luther King event at Princeton University. And I immersed myself in preparation for that event. I immersed myself with Dr. King's writings and speeches and commentary and interviews. I remember as a little boy, I found a book in our basement that had great historical writings in it. And one of the reasons I think I chose to major in history in college was because of some of the books I ran into in the basement. And they had great works in that book. Like What to the Slave is the 4th of July by Frederick Douglass. And the actual text to the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I took that book at 11 years old, 10 years old, and I went to the washing machine and I turned that into my pulpit and I pretended that I was him. And I read that speech as though I was preaching it at the washing machine to the clothes hanging on. See, we had to hang them up in those days. Hang them up there to dry. But there were things about him I didn't know. One is when I went to Princeton, the dean of the chapel told me that he actually preached from that pulpit in 1960, the very pulpit from which I would deliver the message. He preached from that 1960. And there's a big old plaque on the wall that attests to him being there. But she did note that when he came in 1960, even though it was in the North, it was in New Jersey, he wasn't wanted. The dean received tons of letters and protests to have Martin Luther King preach at Princeton University Chapel. I look back at his last Sunday sermon. It was the first Sunday in April of 1968, and he preached it at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. I invite you to pull that sermon up in your leisure. It's a lengthy sermon. It's about 47 minutes. And part of the length is due to what is clearly fatigue. He was preaching as a man who had the air knocked out of him. Did a comparative analysis of his preaching and pulpit behavior of other sermons, and this first Sunday in April 1968, Martin Luther King was a sad Martin Luther King. He was an abandoned Martin Luther King. He was a fatigued and tired and worn Martin Luther King. He usually preached with power in his voice, and there wasn't any weariness. But a few days later, that power would be restored, even though he was suffering with the flu. He was in Memphis, Tennessee, where he delivered his very last sermonic discourse. And in that discourse, he had a certain peace about it that he didn't have that Sunday. It was as though he knew that all things were in God's hands. And those arresting yet powerful words, I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. Martin Luther King was a sociology major at Morehouse, and while it was a bachelor's level degree, I think one of the greatest contributions he has given to sociological discourse is his theory of what is known as the white backlash. And in 1964, after the Civil Rights Bill had passed, it angered a good chunk of white America, and in some cases intensified racism and racial encounters throughout the country. Third thing I've learned, if you're going to move a people to a further step, you have to have a strength that only God can give. You have to be able to stand when it's not popular. You have to be able to speak when it's dangerous. You have to be able to believe in something that is worth dying for. In order to answer the call of God, you have to be grounded in the fact that the God who calls you will be the God who sustains you. And sometimes you have to go alone. While they assisted Jesus, he carried the cross largely by himself. He hung up there by himself. He was in the tomb by himself. But when he exited the tomb, he came out with victory that belongs to you and me, making us more than conquerors, making us heirs to the kingdom. And if we are to claim him as our Lord and to follow him, there are requirements. Following Jesus is not a free ride. being a member of a Christian organization that we call the church, it's not a free ride. There are requirements. We don't set them. We live into them. We obey them. We live up to them. And for a large part, we don't have problems with requirements. We know that at a certain time of the year, you have to go and renew your license. That is required by the state. In order to even get a license, you have to be a certain age, and you have to pass a certain test. That is a requirement. We know that around April 15th, you have to give an answer to the government as to your financial responsibility in life. That's not an option. It's not a suggestion that you pay your taxes. It's not a gentle nudging that you pay a mortgage in order to keep your home. These are requirements. And the Christian faith is not without its requirements. And it's a rough thing to live in an era when God has issues with God's people. When God is not happy. When God is not satisfied with what we're doing and with whom we're becoming. And we come across this threefold requirement list. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. This past week, we had an interesting exercise in justice. We witnessed lawyers gather and raise the question of the fitness of the current leader of the United States, bringing light and attention to an inappropriate conversation that he had with a foreign leader. The suggestion was that he withheld monetary support for Ukraine based on assistance in digging up dirt on a political rival. This seemingly was wrong by everybody. But it wasn't impeachable, even though millions of dollars were misused by them being withheld. I know of a leader who sits in jail this morning, whose consequences are far less. And he will be there for a while. But this one, and it's amazing because I've never seen an accused person have the right to I've never seen an accused person have the right to state when the trial is and how long the trial will be. And demand that it's over by Super Bowl. And whether we like it or not, the gospel comes clear to us this day and holds the entire Congress accountable. What does the Lord require? But to do justice And you can't be an agent of justice when you're a spineless coward. Scared to stand up for what's right. And the whole issue, really, this whole issue of a repetitious analysis of the past president's performance. I've never seen, and I'm a history major, and I've studied this thing a little bit. I've never seen presidents, with every move they made, refer to the last president. Ronald Reagan made mincemeat historically out of Jimmy Carter with one line, "There you go again." And not once during those 8 years of the Reagan presidency was Mr. Carter chastised and called out for his presidential policies. But I get it. I get it. When you follow a pristine leader who has a deep command of the English language, I get it, I understand it. When he stands and speaks, he demands and commands attention. He is able to speak to the most contested of events without insulting anybody. He is able to interpret the Constitution of the United States in legal form. He is able to weep with his fellow citizens at the slaughtering of children. He's able to travel and sing Amazing Grace to a grief-torn state and world as a racist comes in and kills a pastor teaching Bible study along with those students and members. I get it. Everybody can't do that. Everybody cannot end a presidential tenure without any ethical and legal court sessions and cases stacked up. I get it. When you're able to hold a diverse cabinet in place without them being locked up every other week. I get it. When you have to doctor the attendance at your inauguration because it didn't match the historical attendance the prior 2 times. I get it. And this is why I weep for you, sir. Because you're scared of us, aren't you?
Oh.
Educated black men and women. Terrified. And it's your goal to raise an ignorant base and ignite fire and rage and anger. And I call you out on this day in the voice of Michael. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice. And to do justice, you have to speak it. And this president suggested that this was an unfair hearing. This whole thing was unfair. And I don't know how you can be one of the richest men in the country, how you can commit several crimes, intimidate an entire political party, still bank a bunch of money without giving the results of your Internal Revenue Service, and sit in the highest seat in the land and suggest that you're being treated unfairly? What does the Lord require of you but to do justice? To love mercy, this means that we are to live into kindness, which is a spiritual gift. Kindness. It's not a lot God can do with cruelty. It's not much God can do with a cruel, mean-spirited world, an evil and wicked world, and certainly not with an evil and wicked church. And I rush to say to my evangelical brothers and sisters that if this is what you're going to stand behind, you and I can't be in communion together. Are y'all that desperate that you're willing to put on the sidelines those essential basics of the Christian faith just to keep a white majority? Of course, that's what this is about. Are you willing to run behind the buffoon just to treat your fear that the Hispanic community and women and African Americans are continuing to rise and grow economically, that you are scared that you will lose your power? I'm here to tell you, you don't have power unless God gives it to you. You don't have it. Love mercy. You cannot be merciful while you cage children in immigration detention centers. Be merciful. You cannot be merciful while you encourage anti-abortion and yet you do nothing for the children that are here. Do they have health care? Are you not taking money from the arts? Have you not taken money from after-school programming? Don't talk to me about abortion until you show me what you are doing for the children who are already present. Love mercy. Love mercy. You cannot be merciful while you, the leader of the free world, walk around and insult the handicapped and brag about the women you grab and how they love it. And you know, I always say, you only are saying that because you really, sir, haven't grabbed the right woman yet. We have not. You still have both arms. You have not. And you think Russia is a gangster? Let me tell you, you roll up on the wrong one. Love mercy. And this last one that I offer is just my reflections on Black History Month. It's to walk humbly with God. Everybody is mad at somebody. And I'm kind of sick of it. I have greatly reduced my social media engagement because I can't handle it. I mean, everybody is sick and tired of somebody. It's either, you know, I read things like, we want Trump back, and everybody needs to find a way to get up and go to work like everybody else. get your own jobs. And what continues to break my heart is this. The African American community is not the community that is as desperate for affordable health care as the white community is.
Yeah, that's true.
A whole bunch of them need it. But when you're nursed by a sick disease of racism, you will offset your own needs so that you can be part of a dominant race and watch people enjoy benefits that you, poor white person, don't have. And this is the day to walk humbly with God and to turn from hating. And I don't mean just black against white, I also mean black against black. I also mean male against female. I also mean the young against the old. We don't have time for these kinds of conversations. Everybody is valuable to God. And you cannot pick and choose the folk God loves and that God chooses. And God doesn't wake up and look at the world through your lenses. To walk humbly with thy God. Here's the only way to walk humbly. You must wake up every day with the reminder that if it had not been for the Lord on my side, I don't know where I would be. You have to wake up every day with the reminder that I could be worse off than what I am. And no matter how hard it is, and no matter how difficult it is, I could have it worse, but thanks be to God, I'm a blessed somebody. You have to wake up every single day with the reminder that it is God's index finger that tapped me on the shoulder this morning. I didn't wake myself up. I don't have my own health. I can't write my own life prescription. It is God who gives me all that I have, all that I stand on. And morning by morning, with mercies, I still see. All that I need, God's hand has provided. If you want to be humble, you have to wake up and realize that God has made me in the shape of God's image, and I got to do something this day to honor God, and not just my agenda, and not just my will, and not just my plan. I have to honor Him who calls me, and not just me who calls me. God is the one that sets my path. If you want to be humble, you have to wake up and know that on that cross, not my best friend died, not my family died, but Jesus died so that I might have a life and have it abundantly. So therefore, it is my responsibility and my requirement to make it easier, just a little bit easier for somebody else. Just a little bit easier for somebody else. And so, let us, as a black nation, as people who have inherited the strength of Harriet Tubman, as people who have inherited the will of Mary McLeod Bethune to educate a people, as people who have inherited the intellectual capacity of W.B. Du Bois to think and to become and to dream, as a people who have inherited the power of students that sat down at counters 60 years ago under the spit and the slapping and punching of a brutal white people to say that you're not worth being here. Let us inherit those things that people have given to us down through the years by walking humbly toward the future and not holding anybody hostage to what God has in store for us. I dare you to be the whole church that leads the nation and Southfield to 2025 and to 2030 and to 2040. I dare you to not get caught up with the temptation of remembering just who you were, but to be marvelously engaged in who you are becoming. I dare you to dream of the hope that's yet to be, of the people who come down this aisle. When we want to open the doors of the church, then open them up there and let them come with their own story, with their own witness, with their own background, and make them be somebody. I dare you to get out there and roll up your sleeves and say to second and third graders that you can read just like the rest of us. You can get this. I dare you to enliven in youth the passion to return to college, because some have given up on it and have walked away from it. I dare you to walk humbly in such a way that you disturb the power that is, and that you disrupt the demonic force in this world and transform it with the love of God through Christ Jesus. What does the Lord require? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. And should the Lord come back today, may he find us doing just that. Amen.